I think number 5, Jerry Hughes.
Damn.
All right, see, we're on the same page.
We are on the same page. You can literally look at my notes.
Veteran defensive player. Oh, wow, okay,
Yeah.
see it. He probably isn't going to be the player he used to be, but I felt like in that game against the 49ers that he showed up pretty well. And you need to have one wise older fellow, no offense to Jerry Hughes, who is 33, 34 years old. You need someone to, I think, help this defense grow up because you don't really have that, and you haven't really had that for a couple of years.
Sean, who's your number 5?
I'm gonna go with Kenyon Green. Just I need him to be a kind of a bedrock for that offensive line going forward. And obviously he missed some time in training camp, so I don't know if he gets off to a slow start. I would understand it. Also, it would be a great if you're trying to win games. It would be great left tackle, left guard combination.
That's a very good 5th one.
My number
Sean.
5 is Jerry Hughes as well, and it is partially because of the defense. We know that I trust this defense under the hand and the guidance of Lovie Smith, who has a lot of experience on the defensive side of the ball. Nick Caserio loves him, and Nick Caserio is somebody that doesn't give out praise very often, and maybe it's because he knows that he's a vet and it's not going to get to his head, and he's not worried about that. But I know that they are all in on Jerry Hughes. And you and I, boots on the ground, not to brag, we were at that press conference where they talked about how highly they think of him. I think he's going to be a leader on the defense. I think he has the potential to be the proverbial glue guy. So Jerry Hughes is my number 5 as well.
Worth mentioning in that press conference, though, that Nick Caserio, who I agree does not traditionally compliment people, did go out of his way to compliment Ross Blacklock and Max Sharping, which was
yeah, but that's
was polite. Let's just
that's
pretend it
when
was
you
that.
break up with somebody and they're more in love with you than you are with them.
Oh, okay.
And you're like, hey,
you're very familiar with.
Well, yeah.
Oh, damn.
All right, who's your
Heartbreaker.
number 4?
Number 4.
It's not you, it's me. I can't. I'm so jealous of the girl you marry. I'm so lucky.
I'm glad Sean went with where he went with his number 5, because to transition back to Vanessa, Kenyon Green, if this offensive line is going to be mean and better, Kenyon Green's the guy to make it happen. I think this is the kind of influx of talent that you want on the interior so that if this team is truly a running football team, Kenyon Green is going to be the one that is beating up defensive tackles, linebackers, and helping pave the way for a guy who might be my first most important Houston Texan this year.
You, number 4. Sean.
Jalen Pitre.
Okay.
Ooh.
I think, he's just been so impressive. Everything anyone around the Texans says about Jalen Pitre is like almost over the top praise about how quickly he knows the defense, how much of a pro he is back there. It's like having a vet, not a rookie, da-da-da. And it gets me excited, and I want to see him. I want to see if it translates off the practice field into the games. And with him and Stingley, the number 3 pick, that kind of combination, if things work out, that's something you can build entire defense around, is having a shutdown corner and a free safety like that.
My number 4 is Laramie Tunsil.
Laramie Tunsil.
Barely played last year. We didn't know what was going on with the injury. What happens with him, I think, is going to determine a lot of what this line looks like. You have the angle of the veteran leadership. We know he's very quiet. He's not super vocal. But we need to see what Laramie Tunsil can do. We need to see if he's all in or if he's going to have another quote-unquote injury and then just like randomly not play. And what his stat. We know that he said he's committed to the Texans. I need to see it. And I need to see what Laramie Tunsil can do.
And he's got to protect that ass, though, of Davis Mills.
It is very crucial that Davis Mills is protected. Mm-hmm. He's a second-year quarterback. This is going to be his first full season under center. So it's very important that he has that protection and that it's adequate.
Have you talked to your Davis Mills about using protection?
Okay.
We all need to tell him.
I'm not even going to go there.
He needs a left tackle. I'm just saying. You need a good left tackle. So he needs to make sure that he plays well so that the left tackle stays, committed.
Number 3.
My number 3 is Brandin Cooks. This is easy. He's the best player on the team.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
That was me too. My number 3 is Brandin Cooks as well. We already know what he can do. We already know that he's a good weapon for Davis Mills. So I think that he's part of the quote-unquote consistency of the regime.
Similar, but it's Dameon Pierce. It's the rookie running back who is flying up fancy draft boards and rookie of the year charts. It's really, I'm not the first person to say this. It's the first time you get excited about Texans running back since Arian Foster, which sounds insane when you say it, and then you think, and you're like, kind of right. Dameon Pierce, I think he could be the best player on the offense, or at least the most productive up there with Cooks. I mean, it's 1-2, those guys.
Yes,
so give me the rookie Dameon Pierce.
All right, for my number 2, I have Dameon Pierce. Actually, I have Cooks, and then I have Dameon Pierce as number 2. This is the year where we're going to determine what Mills can do. I think fully they're going to decide, are we all in on him, or are we going to get a quarterback, whether it's Stroud, Young, who knows? But I think this is that year, and I think Dameon Pierce is a big part of that. Are there building blocks, per se, that they can use for this rebuild? Could that combination, tandem, whatever, possibly be Mills and Dameon Pierce? What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Jalen Pitre. And I say Jalen Pitre because you look back at past Lovie Smith defenses, and there's generally been one guy running around like a psychopath, knocking the football out. Charles Peanut Tillman is one of my favorite players in the NFL from a decade ago. That was a guy who punched the football out perhaps better than any defensive player. Pitre always is around the ball. I like guys that are like that. That means that you could be opportunistic as you get more and more acclimated. And I feel like of all the players on the defense this year, the one that I think is most likely to have a regular impact, as opposed to Derek Stingley, who, in best case scenario, people just aren't going to throw his way. It's Pitre flying around, being in the middle of the field, being the guy that's just around the ball, and maybe a Houston version of the Honey Badger that works out.
Sean, number 2.
Derek Stingley, 3rd overall pick. It's the first-round pick the Texans have had, I think, since Titus Howard. So it's very important that you nail it. And, I mean, by all accounts, I remember in college, he seemed game day ready from day one. As a freshman, he was probably the best player on the LSU Tigers defense that won national championship. Hopefully, he's had some injuries along the way, and hopefully that can still translate to the NFL, being ready for the next level. And again, if it's your first round pick in that many years, it has to be a good one. You cannot blow it. So Stingley, most important, or second most important Texan.
All right, let's all say our most important Texan on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Davis Mills.
Really?
Yeah, Dameon Pierce.
Wow.
You didn't even have Davis Mills on your top 5?
No, I didn't have him on my top 5. Look,
You don't have the quarterback.
No, because I don't think he's that good. I mean,
Wow.
we'll see what happens.
But isn't that
this year.
still important?
Hot
Yes.
take
Is it
call.
important if he's bad?
It is. Look, if this team is who they say they are, Lovie Smith wants to run the football.
They're who we thought they were.
Kenyon Green is going to be, if by the end of the year he's in the starting lineup, paving the way for Dameon Pierce. This is a running football team, and ultimately this season, whether or not they're successful, whether or not they're competent, it's not going to be determined by Davis Mills. I feel like Mills could prove all of us wrong, but very likely Davis Mills is a guy who is here now and could be replaced next year, where Dameon Pierce, to me, is the next 3 years of this team going to be probably the one that we're all drafting high in fantasy football leagues, and the one that is determining whether or not this team is actually in a game at the end of it. If they can't run the football, they are going to struggle this season. If they can, then this team could annoy some other teams in a way that we saw to an extent from Philadelphia last year.
Yeah, Texans fans should be glad that Dan Mullen underutilized him.